Everybody's Dramo, and today we're going to talk about franchising. And Diane, gosh, when did we meet? Many years ago at Bay Area Consultants Network.
Yes, it
We
has
won't
been.
say how many years.
Thank you.
So how are you doing today?
Just fine. Great day here.
So how did you get into franchising and helping people choose their franchises?
Well, it was very serendipity. We moved to California for my husband's job. I answered one ad in the newspaper for a marketing director for a franchise development company. And that's what started my journey into franchising, which segued into becoming the marketing director for a franchise company. And then I was invited to join Fran Choice, which was not quite 17 years ago. And I very much love coaching, guiding, and helping people consider franchising as an option, somewhat of an alternative to a traditional career.
Wow, that's when we met then, huh? At Bay Area Consultants Network.
Yes,
Time flies.
it does.
Yeah. So people always have questions about franchises. They always think, oh, it's just Subway or McDonald's. I don't know. What's the buy-in now? $1 million probably or more?
Well, certainly if you're looking at big food, big fast food, yes, that would be $1 million or more. Most of the time, the people I work with are not looking at that option because they don't have $1 million to invest and they want something that is much more affordable where they can have a good return. And that could be an investment, let's say, starting at 100,000, 75,000, and going up from there.
Mm-hmm.
Many times people will look at putting a certain percentage down. You might think in terms of when you bought a house. Most people don't pay cash for a house, but they take out a mortgage. Likewise, with a franchise, they will pay, let's say, 30% of the total investment and take out an SBA loan for the balance, or sometimes they will roll retirement funds into the business, which they can do penalty free, and there are actually some tax advantages with that. And right now, money is cheap, rates are low, and it is readily available.
Yeah. So how do you like interview your clients and find out, what's the best fit for them? Or do they come to you and say, I want to buy this franchise?
Occasionally, they come to me and say, I want to buy such and such, and I'll ask them why. I want to make sure that they understand the role of the business owner, which is different than being a consumer. So if a person likes donuts, does that naturally mean they should buy a Dunkin' Donuts? Probably not. But I want to learn about them, what their goals are for the business, what is their why, what do they want to accomplish with owning that business, what skills do they bring to the table. I want to learn about their investment level and what they're comfortable investing. I
Mm-hmm.
want to learn about the territory that they're in. Do they want to open up one location or territory, or might they want to be that empire builder and open up 10 or 100? I'm going to make different recommendations based on the many questions that I asked to learn about them, because there are lots of options. So there are many choices. And once I learn about the person, their goals, their skills, their interests, then I can come back with recommendations of several franchise companies that I think would be a good fit.
That's great advice. I just sometimes see those restaurant makeover shows or the business makeover, like people buy into these things and they have no idea, no experience in the industry. They put their life savings out. It's like, why did you do that?
For most franchises, you don't need industry experience. Usually for food, they want you to have food industry experience. And it's not so much of can you flip that burger or do you know how to make those fries, but it's really understanding what goes into running a restaurant as far as the number of hours, the people involved, buying product, perishable items, things like that. Most of the times people don't have a full realization. So by having some industry experience, they are not surprised if they were to move ahead.
Yeah.
Again, we don't want to have surprises. People go through a franchise investigation process so they learn about the business, the pros, the cons, and what's all involved, so that we can't predict everything, but there shouldn't be any big surprises.
Yeah. Yeah. My parents owned a restaurant, so I know how much work it is, but that wasn't a franchise.
Exactly. And sometimes, Ted, when people say, I want to buy such and such a franchise or restaurant, I'll say, well, let's look at that, but maybe we could find something even better that has a lower investment, better quality of life, fewer hours, some of those types of things.
Yeah, it can be brutal because you know, like the UPS stores. I hear those people work 6 days a week, and it's hard. But it's a good franchise. Is it a good franchise, actually?
Well, there again, I think it really starts with the person, and what might be good for you might not be good for your next door neighbor.
Mm-hmm.
So what are we trying to accomplish with that?
So if somebody comes to you and they say, I'm thinking of buying a franchise, well, how long does it usually take before they actually get the franchise and get it up and running?
Okay. Usually franchise companies have roughly a 6-week investigation model or program that they go through, and they start with an overview of the history of the company, the founders, the management team, the vision for where they're going. Then the next call, and these are usually Zoom calls, they'll talk about unit economics, the investment level, revenue. They'll talk about the IT platform, their advertising, their marketing, employees, how they get them, what they pay them, how they retain them, everything involved. They will take all those aspects and all those things that you would like to know, need to know about the business, and divide it up over a series of weeks so that you can get the information. You'll have a chance to do what we call validation, which is talking with existing franchisees, which is enormously helpful. There will be a call where you go through the legal document known as the franchise disclosure document. And at the end, if the franchise company likes you and you like them, they will invite you to what we call a confirmation day or a discovery day, also sometimes called a meet the team day, which is at the very end, and you're getting your last questions finalized, meeting the whole team, and then you make a decision, yes or no.
That's great. You take through that process because they'll really know if they're ready for it, and they're not going to waste their money. And the company hopefully won't take their money if they're not ready.
Right. And people usually learn a lot about themselves as they go through this business investigation as well. And usually I'll present several options so they can compare and contrast. And sometimes they gravitate to one company because of familiarity. And I encourage them to learn about the others that they might not be familiar with. And then sure enough, they go, wow, and now I understand why you recommended this company. They really have a lot of things that I like, and it might even be better than the first one that I gravitated to.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. So do people also just buy up and running franchises rather than starting a whole new one from scratch?
They do. There are certainly resale options, and depending upon the company, I could come back to the candidate and recommend one new, one resale, or 2 resales or 2 new companies. But usually I like to give options and choices, and certainly that could include an existing franchise.
Yeah. So I've seen articles now. There's a lot of people that are older, they want to retire, and they try to pass it on to their kids, and the kids don't want the business, so they have to sell it.
Sometimes that happens, and yet you would be surprised. Some of the franchises that we work with have been around 30 years or 50 years, and sometimes it's a second or third generation.
Yeah.
And in many respects, that's how you can create generational wealth, is by passing a business to that next generation.
Yeah. My parents said, you're not taking over this restaurant. It's too much work. There was a lot of changes in our town at the time. You're like, nope, you don't need to go there.
Right, right.
So that's good. So you have anything else to add? Like,
I work with people nationally, so I've placed people from New York to Florida, the Midwest, Alaska, Hawaii. I've worked with a few people internationally, which takes a little more time and a few more challenges. And yet people have done that and have been very successful. We look again at the matching is important. There are something like 3,000 franchises, and it can be overwhelming to try to do a search on your own. You don't know which are the good franchises and the not so good franchises. Who are the companies that have good training, have good support, have a good IT platform so that you can be very successful. My services are free. I hopefully can add perspective and advice to coach and guide someone. And of course, a franchise isn't for everyone. It's not for the person that needs the guaranteed paycheck. Franchising is really a risk reduction strategy, not a risk elimination strategy. So you have to be comfortable with a certain amount of risk, but it's also not for the true entrepreneur, the Renaissance person that wants to do everything, or for someone like a Lady Gaga that might show up to training in a meat dress. My guess is she would not like to follow a program or recommendation. She would want to do everything on her own. So if we look at that on the spectrum from 1 to 10, and we said the person who needs the guaranteed paycheck is a 1 and Lady Gaga is a 10, usually the people in that 3 to 7 category are the ones who make a good franchisee.
Okay. Jennifer wants to know who typically invests in a franchise.
The person who they could be disappointed with their job prospects. I tend to say that there are actually 5 categories of people that I work with. One of them is the person who is 50 plus and downsized. They've had usually a stellar career, and they may have been downsized before and got a job right away, but it's taking longer this time, and they're not even certain they want to go back to that corporate grind.
Yeah.
They have skills, they've got resources, so franchising is a very nice option for them. I also work with people who are employed, but nervous. They are in an industry where there's a lot of downsizing and they're afraid that their neck could be next. So for those folks, Ted, we look at what we call manager-run businesses, where the person keeps their job, but they invest in a franchise that can be manager-run. So they have a safety net and an option. And usually what they do is they open up the first location, the first year, the second unit, the second year, the third year. And if they're still employed, they might say, do I want to stay working for this company, or do I want to continue working for myself and expand and build more units? So sometimes it's a nice transition strategy. I also work with people that are returning after a time gap. They could have cared for children or elderly parents. They want to contribute, but the work world doesn't necessarily embrace them or wants them to start over, and they're way beyond that. So when they discover a franchise, they're quite excited. Of course, veterans is another group, and veterans are wonderful business owners, primarily because they're used to following systems and they have management experience. Many franchise companies will give our veterans a discount off the franchise fee as a way to say thank you for your service, and also to encourage them to become business owners because they know that they excel. And finally, the last type of person that I work with, I call that plug and play entrepreneur. They want to work for themselves. They've got confidence. They just say, I don't have that big idea, but give me that toolbox, give me the tools, and let me go. I've got the work ethic, and I want to use your business model, and it'll be a great marriage. So those are some of the people that franchising works really well for.
Yeah, the people like the system. Like my parents' restaurant, they didn't have anybody giving them the guidelines of what to do every day. They had to make it up.
And that's what people like, is that infrastructure. They don't have to create everything from scratch. And many times I talk to people and they tell me once they come back from training and say something like, I was thinking about doing something independently, and now that I've come back and I've seen the checklist and everything that they have, I can't believe that I was thinking of going into this on my own. They provide so much assistance, so much help. It's such a time saver. Vendors are vetted, advertising is plug and play, and they can focus on their business and giving great customer service. So again, it makes it much easier and much more predictable, helping again to minimize that risk.
So are a lot of people moving into franchises now with the pandemic and everything changing?
Very good point, Ted. Yes, many people are now considering it because they're working from home. They could look at other jobs. They say, gee, there's a whole wide world out there. So, yes, many times people are looking at a franchise right alongside of a job, or people are saying, I would like to build something for myself and my family, and I'm going to look at what franchising looks like. And the beautiful thing is that franchising is pretty transparent. You just need to take some time and ask questions, and you can learn a lot about it because people have gone ahead. They've gone down that road, and you're following them and hopefully avoiding some of those pitfalls, some of those bumps in that road.
Yeah. And everybody's 401ks are pretty good right now with all the stock market going up for years. So it might be a good time to invest some of that in a franchise.
And many times people do, and that allows them to start in a better equity position. Again, when you roll retirement funds into your own business, it's not something that you can do on your own. There are companies that specialize in it, but it allows you to do that tax-free, penalty-free, some very strong incentives for doing that. And I always recommend that people look at that as an option and get educated. It may or may not be right for you, but at least learn about that.
Yeah. No, there's a lot before you jump into it to learn. And just
Yes.
getting Entrepreneur Magazine, you see all the ads for all the franchises and like, which would you choose? But you could guide people.
And there are many interesting options. So many times in home services, there are now franchises for roofing, for insulation, irrigation, pet care, pool care, senior care, many things that can be run out of a home office or a small office that don't require that prime real estate.
Yeah, that's great. Well, Diane, thank you so much. This is great.
You are very welcome, Ted. Very nice to see you again.
Yeah.
And I know that we'll probably see each other on Friday for another Bay Area consultant meeting. A little plug there for the bacon group.
Yep. Someday we'll get the bacon again too, maybe.
Yes, yes.
So how do people get in touch with you if they want to learn more?
The easiest way is quickchatwithdiane.com. My name is Diane Pleuss, which happens to rhyme with Choice Voice or Rolls Royce, but Pleuss is spelled Pleuss. And because people can't always get that spelling correctly, the quickchatwithdiane.com tends to work well. Or look me up on LinkedIn, Diane Pleuss, or dianepleuss.com.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
You are very welcome. Take good care.
See you soon.